Niall, what's in your notebook today?
Well, Robbie, today it is 3 weeks since Donald Trump took the oath of office for a second time. And for millions of Americans, we're already through the looking glass. Up is down, down is up, and the driving force across the government is the need to cater to the ego of the president. There is the standard Trump shtick, of course, like taking a shot at Taylor Swift on social media over who got the most applause at the Super Bowl. Taylor Swift will be fine, just one more target of Trump's bluster. But there's a far bigger problem, and it's not Trump's buffoonery, but his menacing belligerence. Many Americans worry about their democracy because 3 weeks in, Trump is waging an all-out war on dissent. The latest examples came in media reports over the weekend. The Wall Street Journal and the Washington Post, in separate stories, exposed how job applicants in the Trump administration are now subject to loyalty tests. Any president might expect hires not to be in outright revolt, of course. But here, the loyalty demanded is blind and total, and the test includes whether the supplicant is willing to lie on Trump's behalf. The Journal reported that applicants were asked if they ever made comments critical of Trump. And the story added, quote, "Of particular interest to the vetting team is whether hires made any comments criticizing Trump over the January the 6th, 2021 riot at the US Capitol and his false claims that the election was stolen," end quote. Let's be clear, the suggestion here is that the admission price for a role in government is a willingness to call a lie the truth and to label the truth as a lie. Pity George Orwell. He got his most famous title wrong by 41 years. The stuff the Washington Post uncovered was just as bad. It revealed that at least 2 people in FBI field offices outside Washington, being interviewed for senior positions, were asked 3 questions. Who were the, quote, real patriots on January the 6th? Who won the 2020 election? And who is your real boss? There's no doubt about the last one, I guess. But if you can't see a danger in asking law enforcement to pledge their loyalty to a man, to put the whims and grievances of a boss over any ideal or any principle, I can't help you. Maybe try the history books instead. The war on dissent has been fought on many fronts, and every day brings new attacks. Attacks on the judiciary, like Trump saying on Air Force One yesterday that judges should not be allowed to make decisions restraining his henchman, Elon Musk. Here he is.
The day you're not allowed to look for theft and fraud, etc., then we don't have much of a country. So no judge should frankly be allowed to make that kind of a decision. It's a disgrace.
There's also attacks on the press, like Trump's Friday call for Washington Post columnist Eugene Robinson to be fired for a column Trump disliked. There are attacks on art, like the chair of the Kennedy Center's board being fired so Trump can install himself to the position. Attacks on history, like the archivist of the United States being fired, not because she did anything wrong, but apparently because Trump didn't like the role her predecessor played in the Mar-a-Lago documents case. See, that's the thing about Trump's war on dissent. It has real victims. Thousands of FBI agents who were set to be named publicly and put at risk simply because they had worked on January the 6th cases. A lawyer representing many of them say the risks that they face if that happens are, quote, horrendous. Critics like John Bolton and Mike Pompeo, who, whatever you think of their policies, have had government security taken away while under serious threat to their lives. How about the roughly 30 prosecutors fired from the Justice Department because they had the temerity to believe in the American creed that no one, not even the president, is above the law? Or the 17 inspectors general fired to make sure no whistleblower would have anyone to hear a cry of conscience? Make no mistake, these actions are threats. It's the threat that if you call out Trump, there will be a price to pay for your career or your peace or even your safety. The reason people on the left worry about Trump's authoritarianism is he keeps doing authoritarian things, like intimidating critics, demanding cultish loyalty, and making it a requirement to call the truth a lie. Those history books I mentioned are filled with dark examples of where that road leads, and right now we're only 3 weeks in.
Well, look, though, Trump has many of his cabinet appointees, his own vice president, J.D. Vance, called him Hitler at one point.
So yes, but reversed himself quite rapidly.
All right, you're asking for a loyalty test. I'm just saying this man has surrounded himself with people who were once extremely critical of him.
But who have abandoned those criticisms, Robbie. That's
right, because he won the election, and he's putting people in key places who agree with him and support his agenda, and at the very least won't work to covertly against him, as he felt like many in the government did the first time that, from the MAGA perspective, marred his efficiency. I mean, it does come down to a kind of ideological difference. The conservative criticism of what government does is that it operates too politically independent of the elected will of the people, of the politicians who are going to do the policy that the people want, or if they do policy that people don't want, can be voted out of office. Instead, it's this business as usual. It's this multi-headed federal bureaucratic hydra that makes its own policies and has tremendous continuity. We've learned some of that in the foreign policy space, by which no matter how many times the American people express a will to de-escalate military conflicts, particularly in the Middle East, you get instead continuity of the people who actually staff the State Department and the Defense Department and all of that. So, I don't like to crack down on dissent. Some of what Trump does I find personally obnoxious. I'm not sure if I was him, I would waste my time, tweeting about Taylor Swift or Eugene Robinson. I absolutely hope is fired by the Washington Post one day because he's a terrible hat columnist.
I disagree with that, but anyway, go ahead.
But
the point here is, obviously we can have different columnists will appeal to different people. But my point about this is, I get that we're in a time when this gets very polarized and Republicans generally back Trump up and Democrats and liberals typically hit out at him. But I would assume as a libertarian, you do have issues with, for example, the President of the United States calling for a newspaper columnist to be fired, or the President of the United States saying that a judge shouldn't be allowed to make certain judgments, or suggesting that a broadcast network who he takes exception to should have their license removed. Those are things that are not are just not appropriate for a president to say.
I think threatening to take away broadcasting licenses is very, very bad and unfreedom oriented. I have totally opposed to and have laughed in the face of his lawsuit, for instance, against Seltzer, who is being represented by my friends at the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, that I cite all the time and promote their work. It's utterly frivolous and contrary to the First Amendment. So I'm happy to criticize many of the things he says and does, of course. And the government is, look, I think often the federal government is waging a war on dissenters. I've been incredibly critical of Joe Biden for doing just that, in my view, by allowing, or if not encouraging, the office of the White House to harass social media moderators into taking down more content. And I absolutely don't want to see the same thing from Trump.
I shall give you the last word on that matter, Robbie. We'll take it from there.
All right, coming up on Rising, it appears that some high-level people have been stripped of their security clearances, as Niall just alluded to. We're going to find out who and why, and probably argue about it. Stay tuned.